Heartwarming truth exposed, how a hungry old man's amazing voice transformed a millionaire's life. Jim sat on his creaky porch, his sunken cheeks lifting slightly with every note that escaped his deep, raspy voice. The sun cast long shadows across the overgrown yard of his dilapidated home, fighting to make its way through the curtain of cornfields swaying in the breeze. The melodies he crooned were rich with emotion, a tapestry of love lost, dreams deferred, and life lived in the margins. And as he sang, years of solitude melted into the music, floating through the air, grasping at the heartstrings of anyone who might be listening. On the other side of town, Morgan sat high above in his sterile penthouse, his expensive car parked on the street. The world below buzzed with life he couldn't remember feeling. Power and ambition could only fill the void for so long. When he heard an unexpected thrum of music weaving through the sounds of the city, it pulled at something deep inside him, a nostalgia tinged with sorrow. Curiosity sparked, and he left his car, drawn towards the sound like a moth to a flame. As he approached Jim's porch, he found the old man both intriguing and guarded, his psalm washing over the memories Morgan had buried away. Jim cast a skeptical gaze upwards, but something in Morgan's eyes convinced him to continue. They exchanged a few tentative words, their souls dancing around what was left unsaid. And so began an unlikely friendship built upon shared melodies that united their starkly different worlds. As Jim's voice gained unexpected traction on social media, higher-ups noticed him. The grizzled vet became a sensation, a voice the world wanted to hear. Yet, with every rising note, Morgan wrestled with a growing dilemma. Fame and fortune drifted dangerously close to exploitation, and he knew the sincerity in Jim's fragility. Like a fragile glass ornament hung on a tree, both men faced the possibility of shattering under pressure. Then came the news: Jim suffered a health scare, uncertainty settling over the small town like a thick coat of fog. Fear surged through Morgan like a lightning bolt. Would he risk the empire he had built to protect the one true friendship he had found? As he sat beside Jim's hospital bed, tubes snaking like vines from the frail body, a storm raged inside him. Would he reveal Jim's identity and risk everything? Or keep him hidden, allowing the fame to flourish? The weight of Jim's legacy pressed down, and with it, the question of morality rose like the sun. What mattered more, success or friendship? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The community buzzed, grappling with mixed emotions of joy and jealousy, and all the while, Jim was preparing for a bittersweet performance on a stage that would finally recognize him. It was a moment that could redefine his existence but might also betray the soul he had always kept tucked away. Morgan was ready to confront his estranged family, and Jim prepared to share his heart with a crowd that might finally see him. The air crackled with possibility and uncertainty, as the two men stood on the brink of transformation and redemption. Their journeys intertwined, together, they would either rise or fall into the deep shadows of broken dreams. The sun was setting, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink, as Jim lay in his hospital bed, a steady beep of the monitors the only rhythm now in his life. Morgan sat close, fingers tapping on the armrest of his chair, the weight of an unspoken decision settling heavily between them. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up, a reminder of the looming choice he faced. "Your song, Jim, it touches people," Morgan finally said, breaking the silence that felt too heavy to bear. "You have a gift that could change everything." But his voice trailed off. The implications of bringing Jim into the limelight gnawed at him. Jim turned his head slightly, his gaze searching Morgan's face. There was a flicker of hope mixed with doubt in those deep-set eyes. "I didn't sing for fame, Morgan. Just to be heard. It's a lonely world, and music was the only friend I had." Morgan's heart ached with that truth. He had spent so much time chasing numbers, wealth, and approval, losing sight of the simple joys that came with connection. Now, he was staring at the very essence of it in the frail figure of his friend. But was he really willing to risk everything just to elevate a single voice? The thought of letting Jim down twisted in his stomach like a snake. "Maybe I could book you a performance and make it something special," Morgan suggested, his eyes widening with the plan as it unfolded in his mind. The idea hung there for a moment, filled with promise and peril at once. "But what if it's too much?" Jim replied, the weariness in his voice suddenly evident. "What if I can't handle it?" A chill swept through Morgan. He remembered how Jim had seemed so alive on the porch, full of music and spirit. Yet here, lying in a hospital bed, every note felt like a distant memory. Had the world's sudden demand for his voice pushed Jim into this frail state? The enormity of that responsibility loomed over him. "I won't force you, Jim. But if you feel ready, I'll be right there with you." Jim closed his eyes, breathing deeply, as if weighing every consequence of that decision. "I need to feel like I have something still to give, not just take what's left of me." "Then let us make it happen," Morgan said resolutely, reaching out to clasp Jim's hand. It was rough and calloused, yet reassuring. "We'll do it together. You'll show them the heart behind the voice that's touched so many." Days passed, and whispers of Jim's upcoming performance spread through the town, a glimmer of excitement amidst the lingering doubts. The community buzzed, a flurry of anticipation, yet uncertainty lingered at the edges. Would Jim be up to it? Would he face the crowd, pour his soul out, and perhaps discover a piece of himself again? Or would the weight of the world crush the flame they ignited? Finally, the day arrived. The small theater was packed, the air ripe with expectation. As Morgan stood backstage, watching Jim prepare, he felt his own heart racing. Every moment he spent wrestling with choices weighed on him like lead. The lights dimmed, and the first notes of an old, familiar song floated in through the thin curtain, wrapping around Morgan like a warm embrace. Would this performance resurrect the smiles buried under years of solitude? Would Jim's legacy shine brightly, or would it fade like the echoes of a forgotten tune? And as he took a deep breath, ready to walk through that curtain and face the crowd with Jim, he realized his own fear entwined with the old man's. The stage had the power to reveal true hearts, but it also held the risk of exposing raw wounds. Morgan entered, his heart pounding with the urgency of a storm brewing overhead. But as he stepped into the light, driven by the desire to protect their shared melody, he wondered, would they be celebrated, or would they discover just how precarious a friendship could become under the spotlight? As Morgan stepped onto the stage, the warm glow of the lights felt like a blanket, wrapping around him, igniting his urgency to support Jim. The murmurs of the audience faded into a high-pitched buzz, the anticipation palpable. In that instant, he caught a glimpse of Jim, who was lost in thought, eyes reflecting the flickering lights, a mixture of fear and hope hovering between them. "Just breathe, Jim," Morgan whispered, feeling the weight of his own heartbeat echo through the silence. The spotlight shined brightly on Jim as he took his position, seemingly small on that grand stage. Morgan's heart raced as Jim lifted his head, taking in the sea of faces gazing up at him with open eyes and eager hearts. Would Jim's voice resonate? Could this truly be a moment of rebirth? Jim opened his mouth, but for a moment, no sound came. The audience held its collective breath, a silence thick enough to slice through. Morgan's palms felt clammy. He leaned in, a protective instinct urging him to step forward, but he knew he had to let Jim find his own rhythm, and then, like the first glimmer of dawn breaking through a dark night, Jim's voice emerged, rich and full of emotion. The room filled with melodies that sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. Each note danced gracefully in the air, swirling around the audience, a mixture of memories and dreams awakened by the power of music. Morgan felt a lump in his throat. As he watched Jim, his frail body seeming to grow stronger with each verse, he understood this was more than a performance. It was a healing process, not just for Jim, but for the entire community threaded into every word sung. The sounds poured forth, a testament to all the struggles, the loneliness, and the resilience that kept them alive through their darkest days. The crowd swayed, their faces illuminated by the memories Jim's voice conjured. People closed their eyes, letting the lyrics wash over them, each one finding personal solace in the song. Laughter burst forth, Tears glistened, emotions melted into one shared experience, but then came the break in Jim's voice, a slight tremor revealing the frailty beneath the strength. Morgan's heart sank. Would this moment be the beginning of a new journey, or a reminder of Jim's fading light? In that moment of vulnerability, something unexpected happened. The audience, sensing Jim's struggle, erupted into gentle encouragement. "You got this, Jim." A voice from the crowd called. "We believe in you." Their passion swelled, pouring back into Jim, igniting a spark. Suddenly, it wasn't just Jim's song anymore, it became theirs, a symphony of shared dreams illuminating the night. Morgan felt the atmosphere shift, electric and warm. With renewed strength, Jim took a breath and belted out the chorus, the powerful sound rippling through the venue like a wave of comprehension. Every eye was locked on him, every heart was pulled, yet as the culmination of the performance approached, Morgan couldn't shake the question lingering inside him. What if this moment, this peak of emotion, came at a cost? What if the fame he once thought could empower Jim only quieted the song forever? As the final notes faded, the applause thundered like a summer storm, warm and overwhelming. Above the cheers, a vision of their future flickered in Morgan's mind, a road filled with challenges and triumphs, the bond between them tangled in bright notes and unresolved questions. After the last cheer faded, Morgan turned to find Jim's eyes glistening with a mix of joy and fear, as if he were grappling with the reality of what this performance could mean. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Morgan asked, voice steady but unsure. Jim, still breathing heavily, smiled as if he saw not just a crowd, but the future unfolding before them. But before he could respond, a sudden hush fell over the audience. From the back of the theater, a stranger stood up, his expression piercing through the haze of celebration, ready to ask the question that could change everything. Morgan's heart raced again as the stranger's presence loomed large. The sweet moment of triumph hung in the air like a delicate bubble, waiting to burst. Who was this person? What could they possibly want? "Excuse me." The stranger called out, his voice steady but carrying an intensity that cut through the applause. "I have something important to say." The audience turned as one, drawn away from their shared celebration and toward this man, whose scruffiness contrasted sharply with the polished atmosphere of the theater. "Is that Jim?" he continued, pointing a finger that shook ever so slightly. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Morgan's instinct urged him to step forward, to protect Jim from whatever was about to unfold. "Yes." Jim shouted in response, his voice gaining strength despite the tremor from moments earlier. "I'm Jim. Your song, it was beautiful. But that's not what I want to talk about." The man paused for breath, searching the crowd like he was gathering the courage to share an intimate truth. "What's more beautiful is what you did for me last year. You saved my life without even knowing it." Confusion clouded the faces surrounding him. Morgan's chest tightened as he exchanged a glance with Jim, whose eyes were wide, a mix of concern and curiosity. "What do you mean?" Jim asked gently, his concern now overriding his previous fear. The stranger took a step forward, his ragged clothes catching the light. "I was homeless. I had nothing. And one day, you performed at the shelter where I was staying. Your music, it lit a spark in me. I remembered what hope felt like, even when I had given up. I found my feet because of you." Whispers echoed through the seats as those around listened, the weight of his words settling on the audience like a heavy fog. The reality of Jim's music hitting deeper than melodies, reaching the very core of humanity's struggles, was glaringly clear. "I'm here tonight," the man continued, "to thank you, Jim. Because of you, I found a job, a place to sleep, and a purpose again. You gave me hope when I had none." Morgan felt tears prick at his eyes. Jim's mouth opened slightly, barely able to fathom the impact of his actions. It wasn't just a performance anymore, it was a lifeline. "And," the man said, raising his voice for emphasis, "I'm not the only one. There are many here tonight whose lives you've touched. Your song became a beacon for us all. The audience erupted into applause, this time not just for Jim but for everyone in that room who had felt that shared connection through the music. Jim's face lit up with a dawning realization. His heart swelled as he understood the true power of what he had done, but that joy was short-lived as doubt crept back in. Morgan watched Jim's smile falter, as if a shadow crossed over the light. The risk of recognition, the very essence of the fame he now held, felt like a double-edged sword. "Do you think I can do this again?" Jim whispered to Morgan, his voice caught in emotion. The reality dawned heavy between them. A chance at greatness came with burdens. "Just remember," Morgan replied, squeezing Jim's shoulder for encouragement, "it's your story to tell." The crowd's energy surged, echoing their belief in Jim. Yet deep inside, a question lingered: was he ready for this journey, or would the weight of expectation drown out the music once more? As applause rolled through the theater, Morgan glanced at the stranger, who stood looking back at Jim with conviction in his eyes. Before he could ponder further, Jim stepped back to the microphone, his resolve firming up. "Thank you," he said, voice steady, transforming doubt into determination. I want to let you down." But lurking within the joy was an unsettling thought. Would he be able to walk the path laid out for him? Could he be both an artist and a guide, or would he lose himself along the way? Just then, the stage lights dimmed slightly, revealing the emotional abyss ahead. What would the next performance demand of him? Would he step forward once more, or let it slip away? Jim felt a surge of warmth from the audience, their energy vibrating through the air, yet he could feel the chill of his own uncertainty hold him back. The stage felt both like a sanctuary and a prison. What if he couldn't replicate the magic he had just shared? What if the world expected more than he could give? The stranger's eyes bored into him like twin suns, radiating hope and gratitude. It unsettled Jim. He could almost hear the whispers urging him to rise to the occasion. "Just be yourself," Morgan's words echoed in his mind. "So many stories," Jim murmured, gazing at the faces before him. "So many lives connected through music, but I'm just one voice." His heart thudded in his chest. More than ever, he understood that his voice had power. The applause settled, transforming into an anticipatory hush. Jim leaned into the microphone, hand trembling slightly as he ran it through his hair, collecting his thoughts. "I want to share a song for all of you. It's about hope, and healing." A ripple of excitement flowed through the crowd, and he closed his eyes, drawing in a deep breath. The spotlight burned warmly on his skin, and with the first note, his voice soared. The melody leaped from his heart, weaving through the audience like an unbreakable thread. Each word felt like a prayer. A thank you, an apology, and an invitation all wrapped into one. He sang for the homeless man, for every smiling face he'd seen tonight, for every heart that had felt the weight of burdens too heavy to bear. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he looked out, seeing Morgan nodding, the stranger enchanted, and the entire theater swaying with him. Midway through, Jim noticed the man in the audience, the one who had shared his story. Tears, bright and glistening, cascaded down the man's face. Jim couldn't help but feel a swell of joy mixed with fear. Would every concert bring tears? Would he always be seen as the savior when he, too, was searching for his own guidance? When the last note faded, the silence was profound. It hung in the air like the last star of dawn, fragile yet burning bright. Suddenly, the world erupted into applause. Cheers filled the room, washing over him like a warm tide. But amidst the jubilation, doubt knocked at his resolve again. "Why do I feel so small?" he thought, fighting against the swell of emotion. Morgan's supportive smile broke through the crowd's eruption, steadying him. "Because you're human," a small voice in his head murmured. "You're sharing your truth, and it's okay to feel vulnerable." Jim stepped back from the mic, caught in a whirlwind of cheers and applause. He had crossed a bridge, a leap into the unknown where music met truth. But he also felt the looming reality of what came next. Do I face the next crowd of expectations? He wondered. Would the belief of these people lift him, or crush him under its weight? In that moment, the stranger stepped forward, visibly emotional, and locked eyes with Jim. "You can't go back. Your journey has just begun. We're here for you." Those simple words wrapped around Jim like a protective blanket. The audience disintegrated into a sea of familiar faces, all ready to embrace him with whatever lay ahead. With a newfound strength, Jim whispered to himself, "I can do this." But even as the realization bore down, another question bubbled to the surface: could he carry the burdens of the many along with his own? The spotlight dimmed, sealing their faces in shadows, and the night stretched on with the promise of what awaited. Would he rise to meet the challenge, or stumble beneath the weight of it all? As the applause faded, Jim stood frozen, stage lights dimming around him. The echo of his song lingered, but the heightened anticipation scattered like leaves in the wind. A part of him wanted to cling to that last moment of connection, the powerful release of emotion shared with the crowd. Yet another part was urging him off the stage, back into the familiar comfort of anonymity. Morgan approached, eyes alight with excitement. "You were incredible, Jim. The way you connected with everyone, it's magic." Her enthusiasm spilled over, but it did little to quell the growing apprehension in his chest. He managed a smile, trying to match her energy, but inside, a shadow loomed. "What does tomorrow look like?" he wondered. "Can I keep this up?" The voices in his head became a restless murmur, pulling at the edges of his hope, threatening to unravel the fragile thread he had woven that night. As he stepped down from the stage, the stranger suddenly appeared before him. With a face etched with gratitude, the man extended his hand. "That was beautiful. You gave me a piece of hope tonight, something I thought I'd lost forever." His voice trembled, but his grip was firm. Jim felt a surge of warmth wash over him, cutting through the lingering doubt. I'm glad it resonated with you," Jim replied, fumbling for words. "It's just one song." Still, the man insisted, passion shining in his eyes. "You have something special. Don't ever doubt that." His conviction struck Jim with a force he couldn't ignore. In those few sentences, the stranger conveyed a truth that settled deep in his heart, a truth that felt both daunting and exhilarating. "Thank you," Jim said, offering a genuine smile. The weight in his chest felt a little lighter as they exchanged a brief nod. Maybe he could be more than just one voice. As he rounded the edge of the stage, Morgan caught up with him. "You realize people are going to be talking about this night for a long time. We need to keep building that momentum. What's next?" Her words ignited a flicker of determination deep within him. He could plan something. It felt necessary, almost urgent. But what? Before he could voice any ideas, the audience, still buzzing, began to disperse, their laughter and chatter ricocheting off the walls like music in itself. Jim stepped outside to the night air, the cool breeze breathing life back into his weary spirit. The moon cast a silver glow over the parking lot, illuminating everything in a soft palette. He watched small clusters of people animatedly discussing his performance, and laughter floated toward him. The joy was infectious, but he also wrestled with the gnawing question in his mind. "How do I keep this happiness alive?" he thought. The challenge of living up to expectations felt bigger than him, yet somehow, the thrill inside pushed him forward. "Next song," he mumbled to himself, pacing under the stillness of the stars. "What do I say? How do I craft my story?" His heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead. The path seemed daunting, but he felt it calling to him with a resonance he couldn't deny. As excitement pulsed through his veins, he yearned for not just music, but a shared purpose, a connection that could transcend mere performance. In that moment, a flicker of inspiration struck him. What if I made it a journey? What if I included them, my audience, my community, in each piece? The idea shone bright against the backdrop of his uncertainty. He took a deep breath, letting the vision settle into his mind. But what if they don't want to follow? He questioned hesitantly. The sound of footsteps approached, and a girl appeared, excitement sparking in her eyes. "Excuse me. Are you Jim? You were amazing. Can you please come perform at our community center? We need more music like yours." Her plea hit him like a thunderbolt, electrifying every doubt. Here was someone ready to invite him to share his journey even more deeply. Jim met her hopeful gaze, feeling the swell of possibility. "Let us do this," he said decisively. "Let us make music together." As he walked with her toward that new opportunity, his heart raced. Was this the answer he had been searching for? The beginning of something far greater than himself? The night stretched long and wide before him, filled with potential. What awaited in this brave new venture? And would he be enough to meet it head-on? The next few days passed in a whirlwind. Jim could hardly keep up with the excitement that bubbled around him. The community center gig transformed from a simple invitation into an event that felt monumental. He had spent hours on the phone with Morgan, brainstorming ideas. They wanted to create a show, a real experience that would pull everyone in, the young, the old, everyone in between. With each idea they tossed around, the weight on his shoulders began to ease. Jim envisioned a night filled with music, storytelling, and laughter, a celebration of his journey through song. He could already see the flashing lights, the crowded room, and the faces lighting up as he played. But amid the growing anticipation, doubts lingered. "Can I really do this?" he murmured one evening while sitting alone on his porch. The stars twinkled above, and the gentle hum of the neighborhood surrounded him, but the silence within was deafening. Moments from that night on stage played in his mind. The applause and that man's fervent words returned, spurring him on, but the uncertainty clawed back. His phone rang, breaking the stillness. It was Morgan. "Hey. I found a local food truck that can cater for the event." She gushed, and he could hear the smile dancing in her voice. "We could create a little festival vibe. What do you think?" Jim couldn't help but smile in return. "Yeah, that sounds awesome. Let us do it." The nervous energy shifted within him, replaced by excitement. They spent the next hour bouncing around ideas for the stage layout, creating a set list, and even planning a small open mic for guests. "Let us invite everyone to share their stories," Morgan suggested. "Exactly," he replied, feeling the spark reignite. "It's about connection. They can all share how music has influenced their lives. I want to hear their voices too." With each word, the vision expanded. He could see it, the community coming together, the laughter, the warmth, the bright shining faces. Yet, just as quickly, doubt would creep back in. Could this really work? Would they want to be part of it? Days turned to nights, and soon the event was upon him. The crowd trickled in, a mix of young families, seniors, and even teenagers. The community center buzzed with the anticipation of gathering, old friends hugging, new connections forming over shared love for music. As Jim set up the stage, his heart pounded with a blend of fear and exhilaration. He took a moment to breathe, feeling Morgan beside him. "You ready for this?" she asked, concern etching her brow. "I don't know," he admitted, staring at the sea of faces as they filtered in. "What if I'm not enough?" She grabbed his arm, grounding him. "You were born for this, Jim. You can do this. Just be yourself. Remember why you started." Her encouragement wrapped around him like a warm embrace, staving off the shadows of doubt. Moments later, the lights dimmed, and the audience quieted. He stepped onto the stage, his heart racing. "Hey everyone, I'm Jim," he began, his voice slightly shaky but steadying as he spoke. "Tonight is about us, all of us. I want to share some songs, but more than that, I want to hear your stories." Cheers erupted, and a wave of confidence burst through him. The music flowed, and the community came alive. They sang, they laughed, they shared tales that were woven through every note. By the time the night drew to a close, he could see the impact of their shared joy. Those were not just voices in the audience anymore, they were friends, neighbors, a collective heartbeat that connected them all. As he took a breath to close the night, uncertainty faded into a glimmer of hope. "Let us keep this going," he said, looking over the vibrant faces. This is just the beginning. When he stepped off the stage, Morgan beamed at him. You did it. That was unbelievable. I did, didn't I? Jim marveled, a smile stretching across his face. But this isn't just my journey anymore. It's ours. And as they walked together through the crowd, ready to embrace what came next, the question stirred inside him again. What next steps could define this new chapter? What journey awaited them, and who else would they inspire along the way? As the weeks unfolded after the event, Jim found himself in a blissful whirlwind of connection and creativity. The gig had ignited a spark not just within him but throughout the community. After the final note faded, stories and music continued to flow, spilling into the world beyond the walls of the community center. People started reaching out, sharing their gratitude and how the night had reignited passions they thought long gone. Jim dove into these connections headfirst, pen in hand, determined to document the stories echoing in his heart. One afternoon, after a long day of discussions with locals, he found himself at a small cafe, sitting across from an elderly man named Harold. They hadn't spoken much at first, just the usual small talk over steaming cups of coffee. But Jim noticed an unfulfilled longing in Harold's eyes. Then it happened. As the conversation flowed, Harold recounted his life as a performer in bars and clubs during the 70s. His voice was rich with nostalgia, painting vivid scenes of laughter, heartache, and passion for music. Jim leaned in, captivated by each word that fell from Harold's lips. Suddenly, the room around them faded away, and it was just the two of them, lost in a world of memories. And then, just like that, life takes you on a different path. Harold sighed, the weight of years stretching across his face. But there is something about music that I don't know, it keeps you alive. Jim felt a lump in his throat. You should share that with everyone. You have so much to give. Harold looked down, a shadow passing across his features. It's just me now. No one wants to hear an old man sing. But you have a voice, Jim insisted, determination lacing his words. What if we created something together? You could share your stories, your music. Harold's eyes brightened for just a moment before doubt crept back. Who would come? It's just a small cafe. I would. Jim said, his voice rising with unrestrained enthusiasm. And I bet people would love to hear you. Imagine a night of storytelling through song just like we did at the community center. It'll be magical. Over the next few weeks, Jim and Harold began to collaborate, brainstorming ideas, and rehearsing together. As they worked, something extraordinary blossomed. Harold's voice was powerful and clear, like honey pouring from a jar, and each note sent chills up Jim's spine. They built a beautiful connection, discussing everything from regrets to dreams, and it turned into something deeper than just music. But on one chilly evening, as they sat on the cafe patio, Harold's expression shifted, and he grew silent. Do you think I really have what it takes? He asked, his vulnerability laid bare. Absolutely, Jim said without missing a beat. You have stories to tell, stories that could inspire others not to fear the aging process. You're proof that life doesn't stop. That's a message people need to hear. Those words resonated between them, wrapping around Harold like a warm blanket. It lifted the burden he had long been carrying. But as they prepared for their first combined event, doubt still lingered. What if no one came? What if the magic they felt together never translated to an audience? The night arrived, and anticipation buzzed like electricity. Jim watched as Harold stood nervously backstage, fidgeting with the collar of his shirt. Would his courage hold? Stepping into the spotlight, the electric energy in the air pulsed around them. Jim whispered encouragement, but suddenly his heart began to race. As they began to play, the crowd swelled, and a quiet hush fell over them. The moment of truth was at hand. Would the audience embrace Harold's heartfelt melodies? Or would their fears echo louder than their hopes? The first notes floated into the air like whispers of hope. Harold's fingers danced over the guitar strings, and Jim felt a surge of warmth flood his chest. The cafe, dimly lit and filled with familiar faces, hung on every word. In that moment it was as if the audience drew closer, leaning in ready to be swept away. Harold's voice soared. It was rich, textured, and full of emotion. Each song told a story, some pulled at heartstrings, while others painted grateful smiles on faces. Jim could see the crowd's reactions, eyes closed, heads bobbing, hands tapping along. It was the connection they had hoped for, but then, mid-song, Jim caught sight of a figure in the back corner. A man sat alone, arms crossed and a stern look etched across his face. He was clad in a crisp suit, the kind that screamed wealth and status, as if he were out of place in this cozy cafe. Jim's stomach twisted. What if this man was a critic? What if he dismissed Harold's magic? As Harold finished one of the more emotional songs, a soft silence fell over the cafe. It was then that Jim took a breath, feeling the weight of Harold's journey. With every glance at Harold's face, a mixture of joy and fear, Jim recalled the conversation they'd shared leading up to this night. They had pushed past the doubts, but would this be a moment of triumph or defeat? The audience erupted in applause when Harold finished, and Jim's gaze landed again on the suited figure. The man had uncrossed his arms, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Slowly, he even clapped along with everyone else. Jim exhaled, feeling a rush of relief and pride swell inside him. They weren't just musicians, they were storytellers striking chords in the hearts of everyone there. As the night progressed, the atmosphere shifted. The songs flowed seamlessly together, and Jim felt the passion radiating from Harold. He noticed patrons tapping their feet, animated conversations arising between sets, and laughter mingling with tears. It was the magic they had dreamed of. Then came the moment of truth. Holding the spotlight with gentle grace, Harold shared a story about a childhood home filled with music and laughter. It was one that connected with raw honesty, as he recounted how he had nearly given up on his dreams but decided to take that leap of faith one last time. Jim caught the eyes of the audience members around him. He saw reflections of their own struggles, their own victories, flickering back. It felt as though everyone in that room shared a piece of themselves with one another, connected through melodies and courageous tales. At the end of the night, Harold's final notes echoed in the air, lingering like a beautiful aftertaste. Silence wrapped around them before the crowd exploded into cheers and applause. Laughter mingled with tears, and Jim felt an overwhelming sense of community embracing them. Standing in the back, the man in the suit was now on his feet, applauding louder than anyone else. Jim quickly made his way through the still happy crowd, excitement bubbling within him. As he approached the suited man, he was surprised to find him beaming, almost transformed. "Your friend, he is incredible," the man said, eyes glimmering with newfound admiration. "I needed this tonight." "Thank you," Jim replied, almost shyly, feeling an unfamiliar urge to share in the man's joy and gratitude. Suddenly, the man extended a hand, offering Jim a deep, genuine smile. "I'm Lawrence. And I think it's time for me to change my tune." Just then, the cafe began to empty, and Harold spotted Jim, glancing between him and the cheering crowd, his smile wide but questioning. "What just happened?" Harold asked, half laughing, half incredulous. As they huddled together, Jim realized the night held more than they anticipated. This wasn't just a small performance, it was a spark igniting change. With the warmth of the crowd still surrounding them, Jim leaned in closer to Harold. "We're just getting started. What if we could do this again? But bigger? Imagine the stories we could tell." The glimmer in Harold's eye told Jim everything he needed to know. This wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. But as he and Harold began to dream about the possibilities, something deep in Jim's gut told him, their journey was about to take an unexpected turn. As the weeks turned into months, Jim and Harold's partnership blossomed. They organized more events, each one bursting with energy and stories. Every show brought together familiar faces, new friends, and a tapestry of shared emotions, unraveled threads of joy, laughter, and healing woven tight with heartfelt melodies. Then one day, as Jim sat in the sunlight pouring through his porch, a message came through from Morgan. You won't believe it. I got a call from a local radio station. They want to feature you two on a live show. Her excitement crackled through the phone, igniting a spark of possibility within him. Would they really reach even more people? Would their music touch hearts far beyond what he had dared to dream? That night, the air was thick with anticipation. The studio was buzzing, lights shone bright like stars in the sky, illuminating the faces of a crowded room. Jim glanced at Harold, whose eyes sparkled with a mixture of nerves and confidence. They had each come so far, but this was a new threshold. Sharing their art with the world live, raw, and filled with emotion. As they prepared backstage, a sense of unity enveloped them. No matter what happens, remember tonight is about being real, Jim said, placing a hand on Harold's shoulder. It's our truth they want to hear. Harold nodded, his breath steadying. They were there to lift each other, together, they could conquer anything. When the host called their names, anxiety melded into a powerful resolve, washing over them as they stepped out into the spotlight. Audience cheers swelled like waves crashing on the shore, encouraging them forward. With every strum of the guitar, Jim felt a connection ripple through the room, a shared heartbeat pulsing out, begging them to listen. They bantered effortlessly, sharing personal stories that intertwiningly reflected their journeys. The laughter flowed freely, and every note sang out with the warmth of vulnerability. But what struck Jim most were the faces watching. He could see disbelief transforming into hope as the music danced around them, and emotions awakened. People were smiling, nodding, some even wiping tears away. Their songs carried meaning that transcended simple entertainment. Between songs, Harold shared about his past, each word a building block that contributed to their shared mission. Music isn't just for me, it's a lifeline for all of us, he said, voice resonating like truth in the air. As they performed a poignant ballad, Jim glanced over the audience again, locking eyes with those radiant faces. People he could see had been touched. One woman in particular caught his eye, her expression reflecting a journey of her own. The previous weight of sorrow on her face morphed into the light of understanding, illustrating how music had filled the empty spaces. The last notes of the show floated through the air like small birds finding their way home. The applause thundered, echoing within the studio walls. It swirled around them like a comforting embrace, solidifying the moment. Jim turned to Harold, both men looked beyond elated. In that shared glance, they understood this was the beginning of something far greater than either had thought possible. Over the weeks following the radio show, their fame began to grow, but not in the way they once feared. Jim and Harold became a duo known not just for their music, but for their authenticity and the community spirit they fostered. Their next event was set for the local fair, and this time, it wouldn't just be a performance, it would be a movement. On the fair's opening night, the stage was alive with excitement. Bright colors painted the ground, laughter filled the air, and Jim stared out at the audience, feeling a familiar pulse of connection. He took a deep breath and went on stage, feeling the warmth of Harold next to him, both of them ready to unleash their spirits into the crowd. Tonight isn't just about our songs, it's about each one of you. Jim called out, his voice steady and clear. Let us hear your stories. Music binds us all together, and we want you to sing with us. And as the crowd erupted in cheers, Jim knew their journey was just beginning. In that moment, he felt enlightened. This wasn't about chasing fame or avoiding fear, it was about being a voice for the many, knowing they had forged a path to something far more beautiful than they ever imagined. With hearts full of gratitude and spirits ready to soar, Jim and Harold embraced their next chapter. Music would continue to unite lives and spark newfound strength. Together, they were ready to touch hearts, empower others to share, and coax every hidden melody out into the world. No longer just a shared song, this was a rousing movement that was sure to echo long after the last notes faded away. The road ahead was broad and filled with promise, and they were ready to embrace every twist and turn hand in hand. Before they stepped into that new journey, Jim took a moment, a smile racing across his face. Let us keep this alive, Harold. We're not just singing, we're starting a revolution of hope. As they stepped forward, their lives intertwined with the stories of countless others, resonating with hope that stretched far beyond any stage. In that moment, They understood that their music wasn't merely a performance, it was a homecoming to all those who ever felt lost. And that beautiful truth would guide them wherever they went. Now, it's your turn to be part of this journey. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that fill hearts. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and spread this powerful message. Comment below and share your own experiences of transformation, because every voice matters. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Together, let us create a tapestry of hope and connection.